Hi, this is A New Nigeria with Wale Oluwade. This is your current affairs program where we critically examine the strategic issues bedeviling Nigeria's developmental aspirations and boldly offer practical suggestions on building the Nigeria of our collective desires. Today's episode promises to be engaging and exciting. My guest is already here to assist me in doing justice and also give depth and clarity to the topic of our discourse. As always, it's going to be evidence-driven, honest, bold, and a no-holds-barred conversation. So get ready as we begin in earnest. And now, let's get on with it. Today, we're looking at 2023 elections, the imperative for a people-centered governance. In the Renaissance era, Europe went through a number of revolutions, often bloody, which eventually culminated in a series of social reforms. In England, for instance, the following social and political reforms ensued: the introduction of the Magna Carta, later the Bill of Rights, and ultimately the settlement rights, all of which leaders of Great Britain limited the roles and powers of the British monarchy in governance to merely ceremonial role as head of government and effectively placing actual legislative powers and governance in an elected parliament. This process was the result of an elite consensus. I don't currently see such here in our environment. In fact, are we capable of such critical thinking that it is in the best interest of the elite and ruling class to fashion a society where the masses are happy, so they, the elite, can be safe? This elite consensus led to the abrogation of absolute monarchies and the creation of constitutional democracies in most parts of the developed world. Now, constitutional democracy involves the active participation of the majority of the citizens of a nation in the election or appointment of a government, setting its governance priorities, holding same accountable, and if need be, removing same, and so on. Globally, the work of responsible government is the welfare and security of the people. Is this the case here in Nigeria? How do we correct this error going forward? Indeed, how do we ensure only those who have an intrinsic understanding of the role and purpose of government and who possess the right skills set are elected into political offices? These are some of the issues we're examining today. We'll take this short break, and when we return, we'll get right into the conversation. Please stay with us. Welcome back. My guest is already here, Alhaji Yabaji Sani. A brief introduction. He is the chairman of Nigeria Inter-Party Advisory Council and also the presidential candidate of the African Democratic Party. Action Democratic Party. ADP. Pardon me. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you.
It's a pleasure.
Nice to have you on the program for the first time.
It's a great pleasure.
Same here.
Yeah,
now, let's get right into our conversation. Let me ask you, I'm sure you're following goings on in our environment. How important is education to nation building, in your own opinion, Alhaji?
Well, I think the only legacy, a veritable one that you can leave for a generation yet unborn, is education. Because education is at the bottom of everything that you want to do in a society or in a country. And no wonder in our party we have the book held in right hand as our symbol. That is the logo of our party, the book. Because we understand the fundamental imperative of having education as our #1 priority.
Mass education.
Exactly.
For people.
Exactly. People must be educated for you to even move forward. All the countries in the world that we have seen, China, even South Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, what have you, the bedrock of the development of those countries is education. And Nigeria, we are lucky in the sense that we have the largest population on the continent of Africa. We have very, very young population, dynamic young people.
Sorry to
that
butt in, Alhaji. If you say we're lucky, I know what you mean, but are we really lucky? Are we really fortunate?
Yeah.
Because we have a youth bulge,
Yes.
youthful population. But
Yes.
how useful?
People look at it.
How useful? No,
as a time
hold on
bomb.
a second, sir. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
How useful
But
to
to me,
economic development and prosperity is
no,
that population?
I aspire to be the president of this country, and I can see that my ready available tools, for that great economic great leap forward, which this country needs, is the human capital. The human capital. And the human capital is about, in fact, the most precious asset of every country is the human capital. What is standing between us and the greatness, which is the promise of this country, is leadership.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm coming to provide.
Bringing. Fantastic.
Yes.
Let me ask you, and I'm glad you touched on the issue of leadership. I don't know if you listened to the Minister for Education. I had an interview this week on a TV network, and he was asked specifically about the rate at which Nigerians were going abroad for study, foreign study, and not just that, the colossal sums that is being spent on education tourism. And they asked him if he felt that was a challenge. He said it's no problem because other nations of the world, do that. But the question is, if we're spending over $1 billion, that's almost $1 trillion naira, on education tourism, while our own public education institutions are in shambles. What does that say to you about the mindset of our political class?
Irresponsibility. It will only be an irresponsible leader that will allow that kind of thing to happen. Because not only, you only mentioned the fact that we are exporting our, like I said before, the most precious asset, which is the human capital. Our doctors, the rate at which they are living in this country, the skilled labor that you require to develop and then
to build your
make
nation.
this country to really grow at the pace that we're supposed to grow. Because our GDP has the capacity to grow at over 10% year on year. Why? Because every ingredient you need is there. What is lacking, like you said, do you agree with me, is leadership.
Absolutely.
So I understand. People might want to point to countries like India today that almost surpass even Britain in terms of their GDP rate of growth and things like that. Well, and fine, the size of the GDP actually, if you look at India, in spite of the population, what have you. So the point I'm trying to make is that, and yes, the government might say, okay, but we are earning a lot from the diaspora, repatriation, that comes to the country, which today I think is pushing almost 20% or if not more 20% of our GDP. Yeah. So the issue now is that those are the windfalls that you get, but that does not translate to the kind of developmental pace that you're supposed to have in your own economy to quickly address issue of poverty, insecurity, and all other things that comes where you have this kind of deterioration which we are having in our economy today. So the point I'm trying to make is that this country is a promise of greatness. This country is the most easiest, I always say it, country to govern. Why am I saying so? You have people that are passionate, that have that can do spirit in Nigerians. Give a Nigerian a chance anywhere outside this country. He's either number one or a very good number two.
Exactly.
So what it means is that all that is lacking is what I have come by the grace of God to provide, which is leadership.
Brilliant.
And the leadership is somebody who can think out of the box, who can ensure that you engage all the sectors of the economy, and ensure that the interface between the private sector and public sector is such that the handshake will be very smooth. What we are having today, which is the policy of our government, is that we are going to transform and reform the regulatory agencies such that the heads of those regulatory agencies are going to be people from the private sector.
After the meeting of the Ministry of Education and Vice Chancellors and Pro-Chancellors in the last week, some are proposing 800,000 or 35% increase for university professors. So let me ask you, Prof. Alhaji, what's in your opinion? Does it make sense to you that there are some revenue-generating agencies, CBN, NNPC, and Nigerian Communications Commission, SEC, and a few others, where a new entrant or even somebody maybe a step higher than a new entrant is earning more than what professors are earning in Nigeria. A full professor in Nigeria, I've interviewed 3 or 4 of them here, seated where you think that's scandalous. But the point is, what are you recommending as presidential candidate? What would your party, in just one short sentence, because so that I can take, what would you recommend for a professor?
Okay, for a professor, I thought you have to address the issue of the source, of the revenue to even pay the professor, so that you can.
But the point is, Alhaji, the point is this: we have sources to pay all kinds of people, in my own view, who are unproductive. Because if you and I, when we started, agree that education is the bedrock, is the foundation.
Yes.
There are countries where, in Scandinavia, Norway, Finland, Sweden, and the rest of that, where the top most desirable job for young children, university graduates, is teaching. And they asked them why, in the survey that I read. The reason, they said, because we see how government treats our teachers, our lecturers. They are the best, treated in the entire Scandinavia. And no wonder Scandinavia is a poster, region for stability in governance. Every index in measuring human development, they are the highest. So I don't want you to say about, we have to talk about revenue. There's revenue to pay National Assembly members who, in my view, and I'm sure you agree with me, are contributing next to nothing. So, like I said, Alhaji, in one sentence, or as short as possible, how much should a university professor earn? And we would think that, okay, we're serious about our educational system.
Well, like you rightly say, we all know what is the right thing and what is not the right thing. We know.
It's 800.
If you are coming from the benchmark of the baseline, I understand now is 400 something, isn't it? That's where they are now, 460 or
16, 416.
416,000 naira. And now maybe you double it, that's what you are saying, 800 something.
Yeah.
Okay, perhaps in order not to introduce some destabilization into the whole packages and things like that, perhaps you could say you can start with that 800 something thousand. But that is not where you stop. You must introduce certain formula that will progressively increase this, so that the teacher will now feel comfortable and will not be envious of any other person outside their own sector. So that's the point I'm making. And I was talking about how do you widen other sources, meaning that you introduce, you increase taxes, the base, both vertically and horizontally. And what I mean to say is that, how about introducing fee-driven activities so that the regulatory agencies I was talking about, that we are going to make them to become, private sector driven, is that activities of those regulatory agencies will be fee-driven, meaning that, take for instance, you have in NNPC, the oil and gas sector, where you have the midstream and downstream regulatory agencies. You will make sure that whatever they are doing, fees are charged based on their activity. You know what that does? What that does is that efficiency is already, inbuilt.
But let's come back to politics. I'm sure you're following goings on in PDP, ADC, where they are clamoring to remove their chairpersons and all of that. As briefly as possible, Alhaji, is that normal in a democracy that you keep having this high turnover of party chairman? What is responsible for this? I know it's not your business, but I'm making it your business.
No, it's my business. I'm the chairman.
Nigerian.
I'm the chairman.
Oh,
of
and also, exactly.
So it's my business.
So what's responsible for this?
Well, what's responsible is, like this is a season, of politics, because now the stakes are very high, like and everybody is junketing, trying to see how they can, occupy, a very vintage position, going forward.
Does stability in a party, does it have any relationship to do with, if a party wins elections and is not stable, can it govern, properly?
Well, you see, the missing link here between parties and government is the fact that, unfortunately, we have lost the role that the head of government.
And the party was very strong under Chief Adisa Akinloye.
The chairman is the leader of the party.
Exactly.
But here, unfortunately, some of the parties, all the parties I could say, have now made governors or presidents as the leader of the party. And that is like standing the pyramid on his head. So definitely it's going to crumble. That's why things are not working. You know, there will be no discipline because the governor will think that he can do whatever he likes.
I think that is, you just hit the nail on the head, Alhaji. Yeah. That is exactly what I had in mind when I asked that question.
Yes.
Because the level of indiscipline in most of our parties, does it augur well for deepening democracy?
Things happened. Two things happened where we are with political, party system. What is it? Two very important underlying conditions are there, which is ignorance.
Because I have a lot of questions for you, Steve.
Ignorance and poverty. Then here you are, a political party inventor, isn't it? But it must also be able to fund its activities. So, but here you are, government that used to fund political parties say they are not funding political parties anymore. So what are you saying, in essence?
Anyway, Alhaji, if we go into that, we will not come out of it. Because I have a different
highest bidder will now dictate the tune.
I think government has no business funding political. Now, you are a presidential candidate. I need to ask you, I have developed a fitness criteria, moral fitness, just to determine or ascertain the suitability of all of you candidates, either president or governor or senator as legislative. So I'm going to ask you some of these questions. Now, I'm taking moral fitness. Are you morally fit to be president of Nigeria? And I'll ask you a few questions. And I just want short responses. Number one, would you declare your assets publicly? Yes or no, sir?
Why not? If I'm ready to.
So I take that as a yes.
Yes.
Would you attend, another question, would you attend for your health care outside of Nigeria if you win election as president of Nigeria?
Except if the local doctors say that I cannot get the service which I need here, and my life is at stake, then of course I will have no option.
That's fair enough. Yeah. Would your children be educated in Nigeria or abroad? Even if they are abroad now and you win, would you bring them back to Nigeria?
Well, the issue of education is this. All of us must develop the system, isn't it? And the very first way to develop the system is for those who are at the heads of affairs.
So I take it your children will still study abroad?
No, they'll come here.
They'll come back here?
Yes, they'll study here.
And we all sink or swim in this educational system. Fantastic. Let me ask you the last one for now on moral fitness. Would you recommend or subscribe to the removal of immunity for president and governors? Immunity from criminal prosecution. Would you subscribe to it? Would you advocate for it if you become president?
I will not.
Okay.
So that the number one citizen does not get distracted
with frivolous cases. Now that's the intendment of the framers of. But we have seen how that plays out anyway. But let me go to governance fitness. We're now asking you questions to ascertain your suitability. If you understand what governance is. Yeah. Alhaji Sani, would you subscribe to the president maintaining a presidential fleet when Nigeria does not even have a national carrier? Yes or no, sir?
No, whether or not Nigeria has a national carrier, the fact of the matter is this. Number one citizen must be very efficient. He must be provided with all his requirements.
Yes, and that includes the Presidential Airfleet?
Wait. No, not the Airfleet.
Okay.
If it requires that the president must have his aircraft, so that he can travel between one place and the other and to carry out his functions. Yes. I will not say because I want to how do you say it, to the gallery, to the gallery or something, and say, no, I'm not going to take aircraft. I'm going to charter or I'm going to.
Okay, let me put it this way. There are currently 10 aircraft in the Presidential Airfleet. What are you going to do with these 10 aircraft in the Presidential Airfleet if you are elected president?
No, 10 aircraft is not what you require. You don't need them. What you need, like I said, you must be able to effectively do needs analysis of what the president needs.
Let me also ask this
what
in
he
rider.
Needs must be provided. Otherwise, he will not be able to function.
Let me do a rider to that.
Yes.
Should a Nigerian president not actually sit down in Nigeria and face his job rather than junkets all over the place? What do you think?
No. The Nigerian president should not sit down in Nigeria.
Okay, he should be all over the place.
He's a global player.
He's a global player.
Yeah, very, very effective. How do you attract investment to the country? Sometimes he has to go and then interact.
We can debate that, but let me ask you this again on governance fitness. would you patronize, would your government patronize made in Nigeria goods? For instance, would you authorize the purchase of foreign SUVs, Toyota Land Cruisers, each of them costing 150 million, 200 million for yourself? In fact, for yourself, you buy a Mercedes Maybach 500. Would you recommend that? Or you buy innocent, would you patronize innocent vehicles?
Of course. Look at other countries, what they do. Look at even America. All the countries we are talking about, developed countries, their president do not ride in the foreign model, cars.
Exactly.
The president rides their car, their own, product, to showcase to the world that, they have something that is of quality, and it can be used by anybody.
Brilliant. Let me ask you this last one, because our time is far gone. But okay. I promise you, you're going to be here. We'll continue, because I have lots of questions on this fitness criteria. The last one is this, Alhaji Sani. Have you thought about the poverty level in Nigeria? And let me ask you, we can't dig into it, I'll just ask this so that you give me a yes or no. Can Nigeria make progress, no matter how brilliant a policy paper is, without solving the poverty debacle? Can Nigeria make progress without tackling poverty headlong?
I haven't seen any country that has been able to make any progress without, first of all, investing and ensuring that the precious asset that you have, if you must progress, your precious asset, like I said, is the human capital. Exactly. So, which means your policy as a government must be people-oriented. Yes, around people. So, and if you center around people, in fact, once you're able to develop the people, insecurity is gone. The rest is, restiveness is gone. Unity is there.
Brilliant.
And then people would live happily, with themselves.
Thank you so much, Alhaji.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate your coming. And like I said, we'll have you back. Campaign season is beginning.
Yes,
we'll have you back a couple of times so that we can explore more conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
And that's the end of the interview segment. Welcome back. And here are my closing statements. I am sad and miffed at the continued bickering going on in the PDP 3 months after its primaries. Rather than speedily constitute a campaign council and set up other ancillary structures to effectively marshal an effective campaign, the party has been enmeshed in internal wranglings over what, in my view, amounts to purely self-centered, inordinate desires and personal ambitions. What I see playing out here is a repeat of the same events which culminated in the 2015 electoral defeat when an incumbent president was unseated. Tragically, the stakes are now even far higher, with the country laying prostrate, gasping for its last breath. Yet, rather than present a united front to save the country, the PDP is again riven by crisis and on a self-destructive path. When will the PDP ever learn from its mistakes? And it isn't just a PDP thing. It is a deeply ingrained Nigerian condition which cuts across all political parties. A truly terrible and unfortunate condition that has hobbled this badly governed country's march to greatness. The condition whereby a few men determine their personal ambitions and interests to be far more superior than that of the overall interest of Nigeria. At every critical juncture in Nigeria's history, what has ruined Nigeria and brought it to where it is today is this condition. Can the current dramatis personae borrow a leaf from other countries of the world and learn how real leaders genuinely sacrifice their ambitions and privileges for the overall good of their country? In the 2016 US presidential succession contest, Vice President Joe Biden was passed over to be the candidate of the Democratic Party, and instead, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was elected. Joe Biden didn't destroy the Democratic Party by accusing everybody of betrayal and not appreciating his services to the party for over 40 years. Well, Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump. Guess what? 4 short years later, same Joe Biden later became candidate and eventually President of America in 2020. Also, we have just witnessed a seamless transition of power in the United Kingdom. The ruling Conservative Party demanded its leader and Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, step aside on purely moral grounds, and he obliged. He didn't claim divine rights to the premiership, nor that he was elected by a landslide general election. Everything went to plan as laid down in the party's rules and convention, almost to the T. Nobody became bigger than the country or party. Nobody pulled the country down because of their personal ambitions. A new prime minister has since emerged, Miss Liz Truss. Her cabinet has been constituted in less than 2 days, and Britain is forging ahead in delivering critical services to the British people. Just like that. No drama, no fuss. In the same United Kingdom, after Prime Minister David Cameron called for a referendum on Brexit and he lost, he stepped down voluntarily without anyone prodding him. His successor, PM Theresa May, due to challenges in the Brexit negotiations with EU, also stepped down. And that was the basis for Boris Johnson's ascension as Prime Minister. All of these men and women didn't see political office and power as something personal to be coveted or strenuously held onto, but as a basis to serving the people. Here, however, the reverse is the case. Men who see public office as divine right to lord it over Nigerians. Worse still, we have a preponderance of persons who believe if they can't have their way, next best option is to burn the house down. Speaking specifically on party chairmanship issue, which some governors and party members are using to blackmail the PDP and its candidates. Might I remind the PDP and all Nigerians that in South Africa, the ruling ANC was founded in 1912 and has had only 14 party leaders, that is, 14 party chairmen in just 100 years. Conversely, the PDP was founded in 1998, just a mere 24 years, and has had 15 party chairmen, and some are already clamoring for the 16th. The question is, are we normal at all as Nigerians? Must you change party chairman at every whim and caprice? What is wrong with us, really? Can you have growth and development in an atmosphere of utter and constant chaos and instability? So I call on all the warlords and strongmen threatening to pull the party down. That's not how statesmen and leaders behave. For the sake of the long-suffering masses and our unborn generations, sheath your swords, subordinate your ambitions and egos to the good of Nigeria for once. To be elected or appointed a local government chairman is a big deal. Yet, if you have ever been a governor, even for a month, I think you ought to be eternally grateful to God for his great kindness to you. There are over 200 million Nigerians who will never attain that feat. So quit playing spoiler and let's salvage Nigeria. That, in my view, is the ultimate act of leadership and patriotism in the service of one's country. Remember, change requires action, and positive change requires positive action. I believe in a new Nigeria, and it is possible. And those are my closing thoughts. Now, that's the program today. Remember to follow me on my different social media handles. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can watch this particular video and other videos there at your convenience. Drop your comments also. I'd love to hear from you. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.